Okay.
Because you'll be doing the. Okay, got it. Hi.
Can we switch the summer report and the EIP order?
Okay, John. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's meeting of the Fairmont School Board. It is Tuesday, November 12, 2019. Roll call as we all here today. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have minutes to approve.
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You want to switch you first?
Okay, and agenda, any changes?
The one change, Mr. President, is they're going to do the SAR report first before the educational improvement plan. So just switch B and A in order.
Okay,
Okay.
And also, the athletic council meeting that was scheduled for last night was canceled, so there won't be a report on that.
That's right, okay.
Second?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. American Education Week. Joyce Forster.
Good evening, school board members. Happy you're representing us. Just wanted to inform you that American Education Week is November 18th through the 22nd, and this is a week in which we as educators highlight the importance of public school education. In the United States, public education truly is the great equalizer. With our educational system, all children have a chance to reach their dreams. It does not matter how rich a child or family may or may not be. If a child is willing to work hard and do their best, he or she can be anything they would like to be. Many of our presidents grew up poor, but what made the difference was their chance to attend school and become educated. With that, I would like Superintendent Brown, to read the proclamation.
Thank you, Joyce. Whereas American Education Week is an opportunity to recognize the accomplishments and the needs of our local public schools, and whereas our public schools have enabled generations of American families to build upon the lessons of the past to achieve the dreams of tomorrow, and whereas Americans' system of public education relies not only on the skills and dedication of teachers, school administrators, and educational support staff, but also on the encouragement and the support of the entire community. And whereas teachers in the Fairmont area are joining teachers, students, and educational organizations around the nation in special activities in honor of American Education Week. Now therefore, I, Joseph E. Brown Sr., Superintendent of Fairmont Area Schools, along with Fairmont Area School employees, am asking parents, students, and civic leaders to join in the nation's annual salute to public education during the week of November 18 to November 22nd, 2019, and do hereby proclaim this week to be American Education Week in the city of Fairmont, Minnesota.
Thank you, Superintendent Brown. I'd also just like to highlight a few of the activities we as teachers will be doing this week. We'll be placing ads and articles in our local newspapers. We'll be giving away baskets of books that teachers have donated to be put in local businesses, doctor's offices, dentist offices, for kids to pick up a free book. We'll be making flyers and signs to highlight the importance of American public education. We'll be having Royal Readers, which is a reader that comes into our classroom to share the joy of reading with our students. So they could be business people or parents or even administrators have come in and read a book to our kids. We'll be having high school students write thank you notes to teachers who have made a difference in their lives. We'll be wearing red for Ed on Friday, and on Wednesday we'll all be wearing our college alma maters shirts or sweatshirts. We'll be having junior achievement teachers from the community in our classrooms during the week, aiding our students in learning about our community, state, nation, and in regards to business. We'll be thanking our veterans for helping our country to stay free. And we'll be writing paragraphs for the Fairmont Sentinel, about what education means to me. And last year I was able to bring a couple kids with me This year I wasn't as on the ball, but I have a couple essays I would like to read from students in our schools, a younger student and an older student. This is from a boy named Nolan in Mrs. Carrie Clayton's class, which is kindergarten. Why education is important to me? Because then you will be super smart. I can learn adding and writing my name. We learn the days of the week and the months of the year, and I also learn how to count. And this is from Jazzy Lopez, who's a 4th grade student in Mrs. Lumen's class. Education is important to me because when I get older, I really want to be a dentist. However, before I become a dentist, I need to learn as much as I can through studying, projects, and even tests. By spending my time exploring new ideas, I feel confident it will help me be a better dentist in the future. Every day I learn new lessons and grow from positivity and encouragement by my parents and my teachers. By being educated, I will be successful and make a difference in this world. Through education, I've learned how to let my dreams guide my actions. I'm so excited to create the best life for my family, my patients, and myself. Most importantly, education matters to me because it will let me spend my life helping others. Changing the world starts one smile at a time. Thank you.
It's neat.
And lastly, I just want to take this opportunity to thank the school board, the parents of our community, and the community of Fairmont in whole for being so supportive of our schools. It really makes us teachers proud to work in such a community in which education is held in such high esteem. So thank you, Fairmont, and thank you, school board.
Thank you.
Well, thank
Thanks,
you.
Joyce. You have a busy week ahead. Okay. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. First of all, let's look at the upcoming calendar, and I'll talk a little bit about last week. Though many of us went to the musical to see Bye Bye Birdie, and boy, that was quite a production. 100 students were involved, and the kids did a great job, and a lot of folks saw that. I certainly enjoyed, and we enjoyed the new PAC seating. It's a lot more comfortable than years past. And also yesterday, we had the most wonderful Veterans Day assembly. We had about 30 local veterans that came and were honored yesterday, and our student body did a great job. We did have Gemini Studios live stream the Veterans Day Assembly so that the elementary students could watch that yesterday, and that's also on the Gemini Studio website. My older brother Bill, who served 30 years in the Navy, he actually viewed the assembly from Bloomington, Illinois, as we live streamed it, so he was very appreciative of that. Okay, looking ahead, Thursday this week, November 14th, we have the Operations Committee meeting that will be held at 9:30 in the morning. And community education is going to have an open house celebrating 48 years of service. That will be from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5:30 at night. And then on Thursday, November 19th, we have a curriculum committee meeting at the high school at 4:45. And I believe that's with the science department.
That would be Tuesday, right?
It is Tuesday, not Thursday. It's
Yeah.
Tuesday the 19th, as I readjust my glasses. Tuesday, November 19th, 4:45, curriculum committee meeting at the high school. We'll be meeting with the science department. And just want to remind folks that if you want something great to do tonight and you don't want to just sit home and watch the school board, you can go to the elementary school. STEAM into STEM is happening at the Little Cardinal Gym, which we used to call the Annex Gym. That goes on till about 7 o'clock tonight, and there's a lot of local companies that are showing how important it is for students to get involved in science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And so many of us are going to that as soon as the school board meeting is over. Enrollment report, I think a copy of that is in your packet. We're actually down 10 students from where we were 2 weeks ago. Most of those are students that were migrant workers that are going back to a warmer climate. And we had a couple families that relocated to Wyoming. And so we're down 10 students, but we're still serving 1,675 students. I also want to call your attention to an open house that's going to be held on November 25th, and there is a flyer in your packet. The Martin County Automotive Academy has been announced, and the vocational wing is going to have an open house on November 25th from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock at night. They'll be serving hot dogs, And they'll be having individuals showing off the Agriculture Academy, Construction Trades Academy, the Culinary Academy, Welding Academy, and the Family and Consumer Science classes and Business Ed classes. Just a great way for the community to come. We have received a couple of calls from other businesses who would also like to come and set up because they're very interested in what we're doing. And I want to thank one of our board members for catching a typo in the flyer that we did fix. So that's all I have.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you, Joe. Moving to finances, we have a few donations.
Yes, in Appendix A, we have a resolution for accepting the following donations and grants as provided by Minnesota statutes. First, from Kaler Automation, $25,000 for the Construction Trades Academy, and that was in the news here recently. From Fairmont 3M, we have a grant for $6,000, which is equipment for the Fairmont Elementary School makerspace. From Slumberland Furniture of Fairmont, we have a chair for the ECFE parent room, $343 value. And from J. Hokinson Print, we have a $100 donation to Fairmont Elementary School and High School activity funds. Be it resolved, or I should say, I would move that we accept the aforementioned donations and grants.
I'll second that resolution.
Any questions, discussion?
Can Joe describe what the 3M grant is a little bit?
I can. This is a 3M grant for the Fairmont Elementary Makerspace, and I believe that's for Carrie Dumeyer's area. And if you come to the Fairmont Elementary School in the near future, her classroom or her makerspace is a dedicated room for science. If you can recall, for the last 2 years, Mrs. Duhlmeyer has been assigned to be a teacher on special assignment to really promote science instruction. And this is the room is really being transformed with new equipment and new furniture. And it's really a pleasant place. And it's right above, her classroom actually overlooks the media center. And it used to be a computer lab on the second floor of Fairmont Elementary. And if you get a chance to visit that in the near future, maybe give her one more week to get the rest of the equipment set up, because it's pretty special. Yep,
Exciting.
it is.
Any other questions, discussion?
No, but this resolution, I mean, with all the ones we have, all the other weeks of the board meetings and that, it just shows another way are appreciative of our community of supporting our schools. So we're very thankful for those things to be, whether it's, $100, $10, or, 25,000. We've had just generous donors, and it does help our school district make and break for our kids. So that's the important thing, is that we can do this all for our kids.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Mike? Aye. Dan?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Nicole?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Murray?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And we will move on to financial reports. Chris?
I'm going to start with the wire transfers. That includes 2 uncommon wires from Martin County, and the other payment I want to cover is Ideas payment. The Ideas payment about halfway down. That includes about a one-time payment from the state for safe schools revenue in the amount of a little over $60,000. We received $35 per student for that, which we are using for a school social worker. Next, I'm going to move on to the single check run. I'm going to review check number 63362 to Tremco Waterproofing. That is for the restoration to the junior high, senior high roof. Moving to the larger check run, I'm going to jump to page 6, and I'm going to review check number 63393 to Hiller Stores. That is to redo take out the carpeting in the main elementary office and put tile in. It was getting kind of worn out and difficult to clean. Moving to page 14, check number 63439 to Southern Plains. That is our second payment to them. And then the last check I'm going to review is check number 63345 to Tyranny Bros for 3 smart boards at the elementary. And I also included the budget model. Overall, revenues compared to our budget is about 13%. That's fairly consistent with the prior years. Expenditures are hanging right around 15% as of September 30th. That is also consistent with prior years in the general fund anyways. And the non-major funds are also hanging right around that 13 to 15%. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
And my agenda. So if there are any questions or anything of the financial reports, I will make a motion to approve the October 2019 wire transfers, or the approve wire transfers for October 18th, 2019 to 11/7/2019, payment of the November 12th bills, and October single checks.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Julie. We have no old business, new business. Kim?
All right. All right, well, we are finally able to bring you the SAR report, which again is the student achievement results. And there we go. So that's projected there. So again, I just want to kind of explain, as a district, we really give two assessments that we really use in terms of what we would call screeners for our MTSS process, and also the information that we need to publicly report with what I'm doing tonight. So the two assessments that we give are the MCA assessments, which is the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment. That is our statewide assessment. From this assessment, the North Star report is generated by this, and I'm going to talk a little or thoroughly about the North Star report later because that's the new system of accountability for Minnesota. The MCAs measure both proficiency and growth. And then it does allow districts to make comparisons with the state. And you can make comparisons with other districts as well, but you just have to recognize that there's a lot of factors that play into the differences amongst districts. The Fast Bridge assessment is an internal assessment that we give, and really it's used to identify students who may be at risk and need more time and support. The data is used really for system improvements and supporting students, and we really look at FastBridge in terms of a measurement of growth. So these are going to be the two assessments that I talk about tonight, and I'm really going to spend a majority of time on the MCA data that we received from the 2018-2019 school year. I also want everybody to know that really, anybody can go and look at our results. If you go to the Minnesota Department of Education website, they have a data center. You go to the data center, you do Minnesota report card, and then you can pick any district in the state to check on the report card. So a lot of the data, most of the data that I'm reporting on tonight can be found on the Minnesota report card.
We have that link to our website, so our parents can just click one stop on that.
It is.
Okay.
Okay, so the first set of data that I'm going to show you here is really kind of achievement over time, and we'll take a look at math first, then reading and science, and then we'll go over any questions that you may have. So again, all of this data is coming from the state website. So they only had the past 3 years of data for math and reading. And then science, we will look at 5 years of data trends. So kind of math achievement over time. If you take a look at the chart there that you may have in front of you up on the screen, the green line represents Fairmont and the blue is the statewide line. And one thing that you're going to notice with our math achievement in the last 3 years, since these are the only 3 years I could get, is that Fairmont really has remained constant around that 59-60% mark, so that we're not seeing an improvement like we would like to see. However, in the same time frame, the state has actually decreased from 59.2% to 55.5%. So as we've remained constant with, again, not a decrease or an increase, the state is showing a decrease. Another thing that we have seen with our math scores, I also put in the table up there kind of our scores compared to the state. Our math scores have typically always been above the state average. And as you can see, for the last 3 years, we are above the state average, and our increase, or the difference between our proficiency and the state's actually increased because of the state's decrease in proficiency. So these numbers right here are just looking at proficiency, and again, it's the math as an entire district. So that's kind of what we're seeing with the math.
Will you define proficiency?
Yeah, proficiency on the state test is, so there's 4 categories that students can score on the state test. When we say a student is proficient, that means the student has scored an M or an E, which is meets or exceeds standards. So it really means they're proficient at grade level standards. And then there's the category of P, which is partially meets, and D, which is does not meet. And we'll break those apart later on as well, too. So reading then, again, the green line being Fairmont and the blue line being the state, what we're seeing with our reading scores over again, just these last 3 years, is that our reading scores have increased. In 2017, we were at 57.5. In 2019, last spring, we were at 60.4. So again, we're seeing an increase in our reading scores, while the state it's kind of reversed to the math. So the state kind of remained constant around that 60% mark, but at that same time, we've been able to increase our scores over those 3 years. So if you take a look at the difference, 2019 was the first year of these 3 that Fairmont was above the state average in terms of proficiency for reading. So we were happy to see that. For science, we're going to see similar trends, especially if we really just look from 2017 to 2019 in that same kind of 3-year period. I was able to get the 5 years trend data with science as compared to the state. So again, Fairmont area school districts is the green, the state is the blue. We have typically, if you really take a look from 2015, 2017, we were very much below the state average. From 2017 to 2019, our science has shown a 6.1% increase in those 3 years, whereas the same time the state has decreased 3.5 percentage marks. So we're really happy to see the increase with our science scores, while again at the same time the state proficiency has decreased. And for the first time in 2019, we weren't above the state average, but we're within 1/10. So we really hope and want that these scores continue to increase, that we continue to see the patterns of the increase with our scores.
So that number represents percentage, right?
Percentage, yeah.
50.6% of our students are proficient.
Yes, that is correct.
So twice in 5 years, we've had half our students proficient. 3 times in 5 years, we've had less than half.
Correct. Yep. And the state average, the highest, within the last 5 years for the state average as well was 55%. So any questions over the achievement over time?
Do you have the ability to chart this against schools that are of a similar demographic or schools that we would compare ourselves to? Because I'm assuming with the state total, you've got schools in there that we would never compare ourselves to. Right? I mean,
Well,
schools that have tremendous difficulties and schools that have unbelievable resources aren't really good comparisons to measure ourselves against our peers. That's everybody in the hopper, right?
Yep.
So can we, and that's useful, but can we also create a chart where we pick schools that have demographics that are similar to ours to see how we're doing compared to schools of a similar nature?
Right, and I did do some of that, as we look at the growth report, I did make some of those comparisons. I did not make the comparisons over the achievement over time with other districts. But yeah, because all of this data is absolutely on the state website.
When you go to the state website, you certainly can make a comparison to other districts if you know the districts you want to compare with.
Right.
And you can make some comparison of demographics. It's cumbersome. It's not a smooth process.
Right.
So, but you can get, some kind of ballpark idea of
Yep.
how we compare, like if you want to check Worthington or Hutchinson or
Yep.
Albert Lee.
Yep, absolutely. And so, and kind of on the next slide, I did do a lot of comparisons with this one. So on the next slide, this shows our growth report for Fairmont. So with the growth report, students are identified, if they have low growth, medium growth, or high growth. And so when you take a look there, and when you look at the pie chart there, the dark blue represents low growth. The high growth, I call the turquoise color, and the green is medium growth. And I did do a lot of reading on, how do they determine if a student needs to, is it high, medium, or low growth? And really, it's based upon their scale score from the previous year. And when I say scale score, a student's scale score may be 636. That means 6 is in 6th grade, and then the 36 would represent their score. And so then it's calculated based on that score for the next year. So like for them to have high growth, the next year they would maybe score 745. I don't know, though, how they come up with the numbers for the next year. That's the one thing I couldn't figure out. But it is based upon their score from the previous year to then the score that they received this year. So we're really, really excited about our growth report. As you can see, we had 77.4 of our students had medium or high growth, as compared to 68.7% of students in the state. And this one, and I don't have the graphs for all the districts, but I did look at every single school in our county on this one. I looked at several schools in our conference, like St. Peter, Marshall, Waseca, Redwood Valley, and then many metro schools. And I could not find, there was no school in our county that had a higher growth percentage than us. There was no school in our conference that I looked at. I didn't look at all of them. And I only found 4 in the metro, and those would be Wayzata at 80.1, Minnetonka at 79.7, Northfield 78.5, and Edina at 77.5. And we were at 77.4. So in terms of our growth report and our students growing in terms of one year to the next, we are very happy with that number. So any questions on the growth report?
Does the state Department of Education give the school districts targets for that number?
There are targets, but we don't know what those targets are. So that's the part I couldn't figure out. How do they determine that target number? But we don't get that information, what that target number is.
It's not super helpful.
Yeah. So, all right, the next one then is, this is kind of a comparison of all the 4 groups of students. So to explain this, we have, again, the math, reading, and science. And so when you take a look here at the 4 bars, those represent what I had explained before, that there's the does not meet. So the gray bar represents the students in the does not meet. The turquoise are the students that were partially proficient. The green are the students who met standards, and the dark blue are the ones that exceeded. Now, with the information on this is on a positive, if you take a look at the gray bar, the state has more students that did not meet standards than Fairmont in all three of the areas. And if you go to the dark blue, and this is an area that Jenny will speak of with the educational improvement plan, if you notice, the state has more kids exceeding the standards than Fairmont area does. We have more, if you combine the top two bars, that's your proficiency. So we have more kids proficient in math, but our number of exceeds kids are lower than the state. And you can see that in reading, and you can also see that in science. So that is definitely an area, our kids who are exceeding or our top meets kids, what are we doing as a district to continue to expand for them as well? So that's an area that this data is really telling us that's an area we need to focus on. Questions on that?
The printed chart is a little different than your online chart.
Oh,
I think some of it's getting cut off.
oh, okay.
So
Which one?
I'm looking like at science. It looks like we exceed more than the state, but you're showing the state exceeds more than we do.
Right.
And
Which one?
see, it
You're
looks,
not gonna reduce lunch right there.
right.
Yeah, no, we're going to get to that one next, Joe.
We're not there quite yet.
Oh,
Yeah. That's the next one.
my growth is good, but my proficiency isn't.
So just,
I'll
so.
keep an eye on it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Somebody's always wanting to work ahead.
So this is another area that, again, we're proud of the work that our staff members have done. When you really take a look here with our comparison with the state of our free and reduced lunch population, and that is, we have about 45% of our students in the district that qualify for free and reduced lunch. When you take a look here, again, we're really proud of what we see here. Again.
Is this
yeah.
measuring the kids that are in that program?
That
Or
have
is
been
this-
identified as free and
Right,
reduced
so
lunch.
you're cross-referencing their outcomes on that test with whether or not they're qualified for that program?
No, they're already qualified, they're already identified as free and reduced lunch. So this is the results of that particular subgroup. So the
I think
first
we're
one
saying
was
same
all
thing.
the
This is actually
students.
measuring kids that have been identified in this group. This
Yes.
isn't a
Yes.
percentage.
Right, yep. So the gray again shows our students that does not meet, and you can see that at the state, about 40% of free and reduced lunch kids in the state do not meet standards. So not even partially proficient with math standards. And you can see that our does not meets, again, significant, lower than that. Whereas with our free and reduced, what we saw opposite with when we have the whole district, our free and reduced lunch kids, we have more of our free and reduced lunch exceed than the state in math, science, what you were showing there, Joe, and then reading, it looks like it's about the same. But again, if you take a look at the top two bars, the top two bars represents proficiency. So you can see that in math, we have many more of our free and reduced lunch students proficient in math, proficient in reading, and also proficient in science as compared to the state. So we're proud of, again, the work being done with our free and reduced lunch population. And I've got more subgroup information at the end, really broken down into numbers, so you can see that a little bit better. Now, the next part here is I wanted to go over the categories of the North Star report, because the North Star report is the state's new school and district accountability system, and it is used to identify schools for support. You do need to publicly report this data, which again is what I'm doing here tonight, and then it also recognizes schools for success. And it is also designed to satisfy the requirements of both the federal Every Student Succeeds Act and the state's World's Best Workforce Law. Just to highlight just a few changes from the previous AYP process, when we look at the North Star report, students are only counted in this data if they were with the district for half a year. So when we get our MCA information, what I just shared with you, that has all of the students, even if they moved in 2 weeks before the test. If they took the test in Fairmont, they're part of our data. However, with the North Star is that they wouldn't be part of this data if they weren't here for half a year. And then also that the areas that are covered with this report is you have to take a look at academic achievement in math and reading. You have to take a look at English language proficiency progress, graduation rates, academic progress, which again is that growth, and then consistent attendance. So we're going to take a look at each of those 5 areas. And again, this is really what's on the website. It really just shows a graph as to where Fairmont is compared to the state. So you can see for math achievement, the district is above the state average for math achievement.
So is this proficiency?
This is proficiency.
Okay.
Yep. It only measures the proficiency. Yep, who met or exceeded.
Okay.
For reading, again, you can see that Fairmont is a little bit above the state average in proficiency for reading. For English language proficiency, the first 2 bars there, underneath it, it says index. And again, Fairmont's the green, state's the blue. So I had to look up what does index mean. So what index means is it's the average progress towards the target. So it means that the English, it's how they're making progress towards meeting their goal as set again by the state. So you can see that our English language proficiency, we're higher than the state in terms of our students meeting their growth target, but we're lower in the students actually meeting proficiency. But what that represents is that our students are making, they're making the growth, it's just that they have a lot of growth to make up to get to proficiency. So that's why you see that difference there. For graduation rates, they take a look now at the 4-year and the 7-year graduation rates. And you can see, again, Fairmont the blue, definitely above the state average. Same with our 7-year rate, above the state average there. I did read that if a school district has a graduation rate of less than 66%, that you would become a school for support. So I am aware of that. Now, the academic progress, and again, this is kind of measuring growth, and this is how this chart works. So this is just 3 bars, so they're not looking at, here are your kids that exceed or are proficient. What this means, the dark blue at the bottom means that the student score decreased or stayed the same. And they're not talking like actual scale score, they're just saying if a student met standards in 6th grade and met them again in 7th grade, their level stayed the same. If a student went from a partially meets to a meets, that means the level improved, which is the turquoise bar on top, and the green is at their level maintained. So if I met as a 6th grader, I met as a 7th grader, I maintained my level. And so you can see here, we had more students as compared to the state in math either maintain or improve. Same in reading as well. We had more students maintain or improve than did the state, and we were less where we would want to be less, that the students decreased or stayed the same.
Is this for last year?
This is all last year's data,
Okay.
18-19, yep.
Okay.
So they're comparing spring of 19 when we give this test to spring of 18.
Okay.
Okay, so that's showing again that growth. And then the attendance.
Is there not one for science, just math and reading?
Yeah, it's just, yep, the North Star only looks at math and reading. And then for consistent attendance, how they calculate consistent attendance, and you can see Fairmont area is a little bit above the state average here, is it's the percentage of students attending more than 90% of the days when they're enrolled at school. So a student has to have an attendance of 90% or more of the days. So with our 172 student contact days, a student could miss up to 17 days of school and still be okay for the attendance in how they calculate this.
Are in-school or school-related activities counted against
No,
attendance?
they're not.
And if they miss an hour, is that counted as a whole day? Or is,
That I'm not sure of.
okay.
I'd have to check on that. Yeah, that I don't know, Nicole.
Skyward, you can mark it.
That just seems like, I mean, yes, we're above 80% and better than the state, but that seems like
It's
a lot.
Yeah, yep, I would agree. Yep. Yeah.
What's the actual number?
About 80, I would say about 83%. So, all right. And then, so that's like all the data from the North Star report. And then I did add, and I don't know how easy this is to see, but I was really just interested in our achievement level gaps, because we're really hearing a lot about, like the gaps of achievement in Minnesota. And so these charts right here, I'll kind of explain kind of what the information is here. So with our free and reduced lunch, that's that first category here. And again, our student population, we have 45.7% of our student populations that qualify for free and reduced lunch. And so the first category here, I have math. And so like our non-free and reduced lunch students, 67% of those students were proficient as compared to the state average of 67.7. So comparing non-free and reduced lunch to non-free and reduced lunch in the state. And then our free and reduced lunch students for Fairmont, we were 47.4 in math proficient as compared to the state 34.2. So we have a district gap of 19.6 as compared to the state's gap of 33.5. For reading, again, you can see our non-free and reduced lunch students were proficient at 70.5% as compared to the state's 70.9. But our free and reduced lunch, we were at 45.9 as compared to the state's 40. And again, you can see the gaps there. For all of our free and reduced lunch students in math, reading, and science, we still have a gap, a significant gap, but again, less than the state average for our free and reduced lunch students. The next category shows our achievement level gaps for our EL students, our English learners. So really our three subgroups in Fairmont really are our free and reduced lunch, our English language learners, and then our special ed population. Last year, we had a student population of 5.7% EL students. This year, that's gonna be significantly higher. But you can see here, we have significant gaps.
What's the state average?
State average for the gap for the.
No, for EL students.
It's on the second column there under the state. So like with math for EL.
No, I'm saying that we have 5.7%.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's the state average?
That I think that just varies by district. I don't know what the state average is.
We could find that out, though.
Okay.
We'll track that down for you.
Yeah.
Without that, I'm not really sure how much this data should be persuasive.
Yeah, and with all of these, everybody's percentage is going to be very different. You know, like I had looked up the free and reduced lunch population of like Wayzata and Minnetonka, and them very, very low. Like Minnetonka's free and reduced lunch is 5.9%. Wayzata is 11.2. Edina is 8.9. You know, and we're 45.9. So there's going to be big variance.
Big differences.
Yeah.
Worthington's going to be very high. Yeah.
Yep. So, but with this too, you can, again, it shows the non-EL students in Fairmont, again, with their math proficiency as compared to the state. And then the EL students for Fairmont, which were 16.1 as compared to the state of 17.7. And again, we do have, really 5.7 is small. We had a small number of students taking these tests. So these are small numbers. But again, you can see that the gaps for both state and Fairmont are between 40 and 50 percentage. So definitely area that we really are focused on as a district this year with our EL students. And then I just did the same for our special education students. And I would say that with our special education students, which again, we're at a 15.1%, we have large district gaps with our special ed students as well. And I just, one thing that an aha is that our science, we actually have the lowest gap between, for our special education students, and yet all of our special education students take mainstream science. So they're in the mainstream classroom with para support in the classroom, where math and reading, we do some pull out. So is that something we should look at? Because we have larger gaps there. I will say too that I'm working with the elementary special ed for their reading and the high school for the math curriculum as well, based on this data and these numbers. Then real quick here, I will admit I don't have a lot to report on FastBridge, because what I learned is if you don't pull the data in June, you don't get the data. And because I didn't know I was going to be doing this, I had to just rely on what was provided to staff development. So really with FastBridge, and again, remember, we use FastBridge as an internal assessment, really more to identify students at risk. And so when we're looking, and then we also look at it for growth. So what I can report on with the FastBridge is that we use the FastBridge assessments to set both the elementary site goal and the junior senior high school site goal. And in this first slide here that I'm showing you, it really is showing the elementary site goal, that their goal was the percentage of all students in grades 1 through 6 at Fairmont Elementary School will meet their growth target on the FastBridge A reading and A math. And what's highlighted here is just the reading. So we wanted to go from 80.1 in 2018 to 83.1 in May of 2019. And they did not meet their goal, as only 78% of the students met their growth target in reading, again, using that FastBridge assessment. On the next slide, it shows the math results. So they wanted to go from 80.9 in math, that was from 2018, to 83.9. And last year, 81% of the students met their growth target in math. And again, because they wanted that to be 83.9, that goal was not met either. And then the high school, and this is a little skewed because in the reading data, the 10th grade was not in here. Again, this is the only data that I could find. And I will make sure that in June this year, I pull all of the data from here before it goes. But the high school site goal last year was by May of 2019, non-free and reduced lunch students will increase the percentage meeting their growth target from 67.6 to 70.6, and that free and reduced lunch students will increase from 59.6 to 64.6. And again, the only data that I could pull for this report was that 69% of the students met their growth target in the reading assessment, and every student at the junior senior high school takes the reading, and only 7th and 8th grade students take the assessment in math, and their growth target was 77%. So I could only get an overall number, not the subgroups divided. So that is kind of the data. Again, I'll have better data for the FastBridge next year.
Kim, going back to the graph for the FastBridge, where you have the red, orange,
Yeah.
green, blue, what do the colors represent?
Okay, so the colors there is, and I wrote this down to make sure I report them. I think I did. We'll go by memory. They're like, students are identified as like college pathway, low risk, some risk, high risk. And so as they go from left to right, the red there is the high risk. The yellow would be low risk. Oh, some risk. Yeah, then it's some risk, low risk, sorry. And then the blue is college pathway. That's how they're identified. So when we're really looking at FastBridge, what we've learned from FastBridge, so if you take a look at that fall to spring growth, they say to add the green and the blue together, and that gives you the target of the students who met their growth. So that, like, when we use it and we get that data on the students, it's really telling us what students are college pathway, what are low risk, and they really consider low risk and college pathway as the students that are on track, and that really, we really focus on the high risk and some risk.
So then in both the high, some, and low risk categories,
Yep.
their scores went down from fall to spring?
This is, I'll be honest, that graph right there, Nicole, I wasn't really focused on because I was looking more at the
Okay.
growth at the other one. So that's their score. Well, from the highest risk group, that went down, which would be good because there's less kids in that high risk, not a lot.
Oh, that's the number of students in that category,
Yeah, the
not their
percentage.
meeting proficiency.
Right,
Okay, gotcha.
right.
Okay,
right.
well, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have much better data on the Pass Bridge next year.
Okay.
Kim,
Yep.
does anybody in the state try to incorporate ACT results in their local assessments? The data that you presented tonight, the state's been declining a little bit. We've been holding pretty steady. But I've seen, reports on the national news that nationally, ACT scores have been on a decline for 10 or more years.
Right.
And I think that has been our local experience. And so I think that's an important piece of information to incorporate into an assessment of how we're doing. So can that be done? Is there any way to tackle that?
To like add in data from the ACT.
Right, yeah, because
Yeah.
it's another way to validate,
Right. Yep.
the MCA data.
Right. And if there's a correlation between.
Because the ACT, scores are probably more important than the MCA in terms of college goals.
Yep,
I think in
absolutely.
the previous couple of board meetings, I did distribute last year's ACT
Right,
scores.
right.
So you could look at those. I was just going to add one thing. First of all, thank you, Kim, for this report. And when the board, when you think about this, when you go back home tonight or the next few days, if you have additional questions, or like, for example, like Mike asked about the statewide ELL population percentage-wise, anything you think about, send that email to either me or Kim or both of us, and we'll follow through on that because the MDE website, the Minnesota Department of Ed website, is rich of information. It just takes some time to work through it, but
Well, it's kind of learning all the nooks and crannies and how to get to point A to B. I mean, I've been on there, and it can be very difficult, and you can get in there sometimes, and then you're like, now how did I get there?
Well,
Right.
and one of the things you have to be careful about is that we have a 7th through 12th grade secondary school, where some schools have a middle school and a high school. So you can't really compare our secondary school to somebody's high school because we're looking at 7th and 8th graders, and they're looking at 10, 11, and 12th graders. And so
Yeah.
you can, if you're careful about the data that you're drilling down.
Right, yeah,
But-
that's important to
but
know.
Mike's question earlier is you can compare, any district you want us to look at, we can do the comparisons of these 3 different scores. And it's good data. And it's nice to be able to compare the demographic data with the results of the results of the individual tests.
Yeah.
In other words, yeah. So,
So I can answer one question. When it comes to Mike's question from earlier, in 2017, 2018, there were 862,160 K through 12 students in Minnesota public schools. 73,128 were identified as English learners. That's 8.5%.
Oh.
And I believe ours was what, 5.8, 5.7? 5.7.
Good research.
All right. Any other questions?
I guess the takeaway from my questions are, the data is the data, and what we do with it is what matters. So how are we doing? Well, compared to what, right? And so I want to make sure that we aren't holding ourselves to an unfair standard, nor do I want to make sure that we're, measuring ourselves too low of a standard. And so I think what we do with this data and how we compare ourselves to our peers is, I think, the critical piece, because you can find any data you want to say what you want it to say, in my experience, and I just want to make sure that we're, how do we measure the success rate we want? How do we measure where we're at? That's compared to what is the very important thing to me. So I'll make sure, keep that in the back of your mind. Well, Edmund's going to ask me, well, compared to what when I present this data? That's going to be my thing. Like, how do I know if this is good or bad? Are the numbers, compared to the state, we're slightly above average. That's not bad. And I'm not trying to say that at all. I just, I want to make sure that we're right sizing our expectations, and with market comparables would allow us to, I think, better measure ourselves and know if we're really doing well or if we're really struggling somewhere compared to our peers.
And Kim, I have a question.
Yeah.
To your knowledge, is there a place on the MD website that we can look at the mobility index of a district? How many kids in and out? And the reason why I ask that is
I don't know.
I did some analysis today of the elementary. So far this school year, and we're only, 3 months into the year? Not a full quarter, I guess. But we've had 51 new students that have joined us since the beginning of the school year. We've had 69 students leave us. Much of this is the migrant population that's coming in or going out. But, that's 120 students that we've shuffled in and out of
Already.
our elementary school in the last 9 weeks. The mobility index, I'm always curious about the mobility index, because I know there are some schools that, very few people move in and out, mainly because of the economics. Southern part of Minnesota, we seem to have a lot of folks moving around, So I'd be
Right.
curious about that. If we can track that down, that'd be something that we could focus on.
Yep.
And we could ask our faculty too. I mean, I'm sure that's another challenge that we have as kids are moving in and out of our system. And then at some point we go, oh, by the way, we're going to take a snapshot of you today. And like you said, we may have had you for 2 weeks, and we may have had you for 12 years.
Right.
So,
And Jenny's going to follow up kind of on what is this data telling us to do. I just want to add quick, after I kind of dug into this data and was really looking at the achievement level gaps, Joe provided me with a lot of reading that he had come across, so he shared it with me and I've read it, and I kind of identified common themes amongst each article and really focused on what are they telling us schools can do to help decrease the achievement gap. And then I cross-referenced from all the articles that I read, and there's kind of 4 things that kind of showed up over and over again amongst all of these articles. So one of them is using data and teacher coaching to improve instruction, so really being data-driven in your instruction and having instructional coaches. Attracting, developing, and retaining high-quality teachers, that was a second thing. A third one was maximizing student learning time. And then the fourth one was supporting students and families through individualized services or having outside resources available to families. But those were 4 things that amongst all the articles that I read came up in every single one. And there's obviously other things, but those 4 were repeated in multiple sources of what I read. So
Question
kind
for
of
Joe. Is one of those articles from the MSBA magazine that just came out? There's an interesting article in the Minnesota School Board Association magazine that came out addressing what's effective in the classroom, and the high impact strategies are well recognized. They've been researched.
Yep.
And what the article was saying is that those really are not well taught, in our teaching programs,
Yep.
Across the country.
Right.
And so, even the new teachers, may not have received the best instruction in some of those strategies, and so I think what you're saying is exactly what the article was saying, is that we know what works.
Yep.
The challenge is to make sure that all this we all know what those elements are.
Right.
And that making sure that we incorporate them in the instruction.
Yep, that staff development, training, support for them is crucial. And that maybe was a perfect segue into our educational improvement plan.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah, I need a motion.
I move to approve the 2018-2019 Student Achievement Report as presented in Appendix C by Principal Niss.
I'll second it.
Julie, any questions?
Are we accepting it or are we approving it?
The motion is to
Approving.
approve.
To approve.
Is that what we want to do? Or do we want to accept it?
I think legally, we just have to accept it.
Not trying to be difficult, just trying to, I mean, there's a difference technically, and we didn't do the report. We're not validating the report, but we're accepting it as presented.
As presented by
Yeah.
Appendix C and Kim Niss, Principal Niss. So
I think Mike's question is, do you want to change the verbiage, the verb to be accept versus approve?
Doesn't matter to me.
someone has to make a motion.
Is that?
Someone has to make a motion to amend it.
Probably should have been approval of the agenda corrections.
I would suggest a friendly motion, if we're using small board Robert's rules, to change the motion to be accept as opposed to approve.
So what's the difference?
She's an expert that compiled an expert report. I have no idea if it was done perfectly or not. I'm not approving it as it's done right. I'm accepting it as presented to me. They could mean something different. Like if someone, if you're accepting I'm accepting the financials, I'm approving an expense. I'm not validating that the data was done. I'm accepting that it was done. So I'm
Okay.
not saying it should matter, but it could matter. I'm just asking.
I think accept is okay.
Yeah, I'm okay.
You want-
You want to make that motion?
Approve is fine,
He just
too.
did. He
Okay.
need a second.
So we have a friendly, motion for friendly amendment?
He
need a
made
second.
that, so you
Okay,
need a
Do we
second.
second? Anybody want to second it?
Well, I think the friendly amendment could be accepted by the original motionee, not to get too nerdy.
No,
Who made, you made
Nicole
it?
did.
I made it. No, I
Okay.
don't accept it.
Okay, so it dies. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now,
Mrs. Daniel.
Sorry, Mike. Maybe next time I'll word it different.
Jenny, okay.
This point, I'll take it.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Jenny
Welcome.
Danu, representing the District Staff Development Curriculum Council. Based on Kim's reports of the data, I'm here to present the Educational Improvement Plan, which includes the district goal and initiatives and plans to meet those initiatives or to work towards those. I'm assuming you have this in your packets. Looks like it's Appendix D. And you'll see right on the front that our district goal is that by May of 2020, student achievement of our free and reduced lunch subgroup will increase by 3% on the MCA assessment in reading and math. There's always been a fair amount of discussion on how to identify which subgroup to include in our goal, and we've noticed that that free and reduced subgroup often contains many of the same students, our EL subgroup, our special ed subgroup, so it's a more inclusive subgroup for us to focus on. If we are reaching those kids, we are also reaching those other categories of students. So then looking at the initiatives, I will just say that it has been beneficial to have a principal of curriculum to help us with these things. And you'll notice that she's our suggested leader in many areas. So that's been a positive for our SDCC committee and our district as a whole to have somebody to focus on that area.
I know that a lot of them some of them are completed by, June 2020, that's date specific, and some of them are more ongoing. Is there like a suggested, highway stop along the way? Maybe not a actual completion, but are we on progress? When it's kind of up in the air like that, ongoing, how are we stopping along the way to make sure we're
And
making
that comes through our Staff Development Curriculum Council meetings, where we are checking in on how our progress towards the initiatives throughout the year.
Okay.
Make sense? can answer that question. We really didn't change many of the initiatives. When we looked at them as a whole from last year's EIP, we thought that some of them either didn't really have a clear ending date, that they're just kind of an ongoing process, or we were still in progress on many of these areas. We did do a little shifting to kind of organize them into the 3 initiatives that you see. Another focus was to not only consider the what we want to accomplish, but how are we going to do that? So to address both of those areas. So just to quickly go through the initiatives, the first one was aligning our curriculum. And what we need to do is to identify the standards by unit in all content areas. There's been discussion of using a unified curriculum map or pulling that information from our curriculums that have already been set up. For example, our reading curriculum at the elementary is already aligned well to the standards, so not necessarily having to use a template, but ensuring that our content areas are aligned to the standards. It has been noticed that in order to do that, we maybe need to make some adjustments to our calendar. That's a discussion we're having right now with a small subcommittee through SDCC, is how can we make our calendar more efficient so that our teachers are able to work to have the time to do that work. So that's kind of the how. We need a clear timeline, a good curriculum calendar. Some things to consider are summer curriculum writing or some other adjustments to the calendar that might make that easier for our teachers to accomplish.
That's a great example of maybe my question. So summer curriculum writing, like you would want to have that done before the summer. It's like normally if you had a timeline, like just we're going to pin that as done by May 1st. It says ongoing. You're obviously going to continue to work on it, but if you've got, like these look like action items that you're going to create, and you have some time circumference on them. I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be helpful to have that pin on the board like you did with that first box.
I would say that when you're looking at the timeline, the curriculum calendar, and the summer curriculum writing, those are ideas, not necessarily this is going to happen, but things that we're thinking about to support that.
So the summer curriculum writing, is that just, is it the idea that some of that work would take place over the summer?
Correct.
Because of the time limitations during the school year?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
And just to clarify too, like with the ongoing with the summer curriculum writing, there's like a calendar that is set up of what departments would work in the summer of 2020, summer of 2021, summer of 2022. So that's why it's kind of ongoing, because there's always going to be departments coming in, but there is more definite timeframes in terms of what departments that it would entail. They know that well ahead of time, so we can get those dates set, because it gets difficult too when everybody kind of, so that
this
is
summer
pretty-
it is science.
Yep.
Last
Science.
summer was PE and health.
Yep, science also got together last summer as well.
Okay.
So you kind of maybe like a 3-year rotation depending on the scope of the work. So science will definitely be like a definite 3-year group that will go through. PE and health should be done this coming up summer.
Okay.
Okay. Our second initiative is to continue, this is an ongoing initiative to continue to embed those high-value instructional strategies in our curriculum. And the 3 that are identified are engagement, aligning our instruction to the achievement level descriptors, which is a topic of our PLC groups, specifically Brooke Schultz, working with our PLC leaders, spends a lot of time in that category with those leaders. And then our formative assessment, which again supports using that data to drive our instruction as one of those 4 components that Kim outlined at the end of her report.
I think the emphasis that Kim talked about, and that's in this report here, is that it's data-driven. People often ask, why do we do so many tests? And that's how we gather our data, and research shows that data-driven curriculum and instruction is what gets results. So we have to collect data in order to drive our instruction and our curriculum.
And then the final initiative is to provide academic, social, and emotional support to meet the needs of our diverse learners. And we just kind of identified those as our subgroups of free and reduced lunch students, special education students, our EL students, and also including those students who exceed standards, which is an area identified as a need in the data that Kim shared earlier. And this has been kind of set up for us through the SOAR program that's been established this year at both the elementary and the high school. So providing those academic supports for all of those subgroups during that SOAR time. Training all of the people that work with our students, the teachers, the paraprofessionals, the aides, in those strategies to support those students. And then a big topic of the past several years has been that social emotional needs, the neuroscience research, things like Kagan and Top 20 and growth mindset, those kinds of things, and the effect that it has on our learners. So those are the initiatives, our plans to get there. Are there any questions?
And just one idea I'd like to add to that, number 2 in the final there, teachers, paras, and aides, does that also include substitutes?
I would say no.
Does not.
Doesn't?
But that's a great idea, Dan.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So if we put substitutes in there, is there a plan or a way that we can do that? I mean,
We can always invite them to all of our trainings that we do that would relate to this. They'd always be welcome to come.
Okay, something to discuss.
Yeah, and really with all of our substitutes too, because they need like relicensure to keep their license going, and like I look at this one, I know Melinda's going to do some training on EL instructional strategies for our EL students. So when she does those, we could absolutely extend that invitation out to the substitutes as well.
okay.
Jenny, a couple questions. In regards to standards, principals and school board and with a meeting with the student council recently, one idea that's been discussed is a term Kim coined, power standards. Jake TG described it as local standards, but identifying a group of standards that we test the students regularly. It's a way to benchmark our progress, our success as a district in educating our students. We don't currently have that. We don't have a way of knowing if the students are making regular progress towards standards that we locally recognize as critical for success in career and college. Math standards, English standards, science standards. And it's it doesn't have to be extensive, but they have to be important. They have to be powerful. And I'm just wondering if SDCC has thought about that, has discussed it. But I think it's something that I wanted to bring your attention because we've discussed it with the principals. We even discussed it with the student council, and they were very receptive. They thought it would be helpful. So I just wanted to, make you aware that, that discussion is going on. And the other, in regard to the students that exceed standards, how do we support them? And one very important way is making sure that our syllabi, especially at the junior high and high school, are authentic, they're accurate. They provide a roadmap for the students to progress through the course at whatever pace, if they want to excel, if they want to exceed, if they want to march forward, ahead of the class, they can't do that without a robust syllabus. And so that is also a discussion that's been taking place, and again was introduced to the students, and the students again thought it was a great idea. So I think we just need to continue those discussions and make sure that we take some concrete action to try to to make sure that we are providing the best learning experience for the kids. We're doing good. We're doing half of our kids, or more than half of our kids are exceeding or meeting or exceeding standards. but that doesn't mean that our job is done. As I say, across the country, ACT scores continue to drop year after year. And so I think, it just makes our job every day harder and harder. And the future that the kids are going to find, in 10, 20 years is going to be more challenging than it is today. And so we need to do the best job we can to prepare them and be as innovative and creative and try new things and think outside the box and work together to try to create that learning environment that far exceeds state averages.
I agree with Rufus, and I have to go get my own kid for an activity, so. Carry on.
Okay,
I can
thanks,
speak to
Mike.
both of those comments from the elementary level because that's where my experience is. I would say that the topic of addressing our power standards and identifying those and tracking how our kids are progressing in regards to those is happening in our curriculum teams at the elementary
Okay.
level. That's at least the curriculum team I serve on, the language arts. That's a big topic
Okay.
during those meetings. The second one
Syllabi.
on the students who exceed standard. At the elementary, that's a weakness. We don't have the resources. There's a specific way to address students who exceed standards. So we're working, that would definitely be a need.
Well, the board is very receptive to ideas, I know that for my son that graduated recently, one of the highlights of his elementary experience was, when he worked with, first it was Michelle Rosen when she was a math specialist. And so, it doesn't take much, but, he needed challenge and creating that opportunity for him to do some innovative things in math. And if it requires, extra staffing, we just need to have a proposal. We just need some creative ideas to create those opportunities in the school that, that not only meet the needs of the free and reduced lunch kids and the special ed kids, but also the kids that are, that are exceeding standards.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I, in the past, have advocated for hiring a gifted teacher to start a gifted program specifically. I was lucky enough to be able to go through one of those in my elementary school, and it was extremely beneficial for me. So that's one idea.
I believe at the elementary, we have a teacher on staff who's certified in that area, not serving in that area currently, but is certified in gifted and talented. Is that correct? Josie?
Okay.
Yeah. And I just add real quick, Rufus, I think on your first account thing too, under initiative number 2 with the testing, I think it fits perfectly with number 3 of using the diagnostic or aligned assessments to drive data-driven decisions, because they should be aligned assessments, and we're using that data to, meet the needs of our kids. So I think that's perfect with number 3. And then just with the students who exceed, I know I'm looking for resources right now to support our students during that SOAR time that exceeds standards. So I'm in the process of trying to find it. I've reached out to different schools that have programs to see what they use, so.
It's a challenge. We just have to keep plowing ahead.
Yep.
And we also had a request by one of our board members to look into academic lettering. And the 2 counselors at the high school are doing that analysis right now and checking with other high schools, because we don't have that right now. But
Okay.
that's something that we might consider doing in the future.
Okay.
You need a motion.
I need a motion.
I move to approve the 2019-20 Education Improvement Plan as presented in Appendix B by Mrs. Jenny Daniel.
I'll second it.
Mari.
Oh. He's gone.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Any questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Dan, you want to
Thank
take
you.
C?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dan will
Thanks,
take
Danny.
C. Yep, Dan will take C.
Okay. And C,
Okay, since we meet on the second and fourth Tuesday in December, the fourth Tuesday falls on Christmas Eve, I would make a motion to approve canceling the regularly scheduled board meeting of December 24th.
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, guys. Okay, personnel, Mari.
Okay. Following the resignation of Jessica Martinez, our Community Outreach Coordinator, co-principals Michelle Rosen and Andy Tradeauer recommending the position be filled by Natata Nile, sorry.
Yeah.
Nathaniel Morano, excuse my pronunciation, sorry. He's originally from Chile and moved to Fairmont his senior year. He was a 2006 FHS graduate. He's currently serving as the office manager and family liaison at Hiawatha Academy in the cities. He will be finishing up his first semester at the academy and will begin his employment with us sometime later in January. Michelle and Andy are also recommending his wife Lee be hired as the English language learner teacher. The number of ELL students to our elementary grades has grown from 50 in 2015-16 to 98 in 2019-20 school year. Lee is able to start working mid-December, so she will begin by assuming Jessica Martinez's responsibility as Community Outreach Coordinator until he arrives. She will then serve as a full-time ELL teacher. Lee is a Fairmont High School graduate and holds a master's degree in Tesla teaching English to speakers of other languages. She is currently employed by the University of Minnesota as a multilingual learning specialist. Both Nathaniel and Leah are fluent in English and Spanish. Also, a list of recommended winter coaches for the 2019-2020 school year is enclosed in Appendix D. All positions are filled. And we have received a resignation from Lisa Doro, Title I aide, effective December 13, 2019. Lisa has been employed in the school system since 2016. I will make a motion to approve the following personnel items. Employment of Lee Moreno as an ELL teacher effective December 16th at a salary of MA Step 1. Employment of Nathaniel Moreno as Community Outreach Coordinator effective date to be determined at a salary of $46,004 plus a $5,000 relocation stipend, which will be paid half in January and half in July. Employment of the winter coaches for the 2019-2020 school year. Resignation of Lisa Doro, Title I aide, effective December 13th of 2019.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, thank you, Mary. Board reports. Nicole, Curriculum Committee?
Yes. Mari's also reporting on Curriculum Committee. Did we meet that?
No, you weren't there. I was there. It was the
Oh,
last
okay.
one, so.
Okay. Okay, they were different. Okay, so we met on the 28th with Principal Niss, and she went over what she's been doing her first few months in this new position. And I was very impressed. She had quite a lot of information for us. One thing that she brought to our attention is we asked her to research becoming an online school, and this is the packet front and back of what we need to do. So she and Superintendent Brown are working together, and then once they have some more information and are ready to move on to another step, I'll meet with them, and anyone else from the board who is interested in that will meet as well. We talked about, let's see. It was a very good meeting.
A lot of the information that Kim shared with us tonight was
Yes,
part of
was
that
part of
meeting.
that. We talked about micro-credentialing, the curriculum report. It was really good. So I appreciate the time that she spent
Yes, it was a lot of information.
to provide that to us. And I'm very pleased with this new position and what it's doing for our district and the help that it's giving to all of our staff. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, spec board meeting?
Yes, we met October 28th, the Southern Plains Education Cooperative. We met but it was Sarah Middlestad, who's the director, was absent, but, oh, I can't think of her name, led the meeting or was there to the meeting to help lead us through that. Most of the members were present for that, so we had a quorum at least. And there were really not a lot of things. We set the rates for the Girls Academy, the Second Chances, Adolescent Treatment Center, Winnebago. The rates for those to be the daily rates that would be reimbursed for the Southern Plains Education Cooperative. We also set the usage rate for RISE programs. We had agreement with IEA for the periodic inspections, agreement with the City of Fairmont for a school resource officer that was approved, and we also approved service agreements for South Central Service Cooperative for vision services, orientation and mobility, and audiology services. So it was a fairly quick meeting.
Any updates on the RISE Academy, how things are going?
Really, they're going pretty good. They've had some rough patches, which I think could have been worse had the students started in one district building and then moved another one. But the students just have to get used to a new building, is what's going on. The business office part of the Southern Plains Educational Cooperative has not moved yet. That part of the building, hopefully they'll be moving mid-November here. But otherwise, everything is going in place. I know Sarah said sent a update. I have it on my phone at home. I feel lost without my phone.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
Sorry.
And we have another curriculum committee meeting, Mari.
Right. So we met and talked about the health classes that'll be going forward. They're starting in December classes are starting. There is Mackenzie Turfer is working with Chris Engelby regarding the health classes. She is finishing her DNP, which is the Doctor of Nursing project. So she will be leading the health classes with sexual education. We looked at letters that would be sent out to parents explaining the program and what it was going through. So we kind of got a bird's eye view of what the 8 classes are going to be. There will also be a OBGYN that will be coming and speaking to the classroom. So it was very good information, and I think the kids are going to learn a lot, and it's going to be handled very well. So
Good.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mari. Staff welfare, Julie?
We talked about the hirings today, and then we did discuss a few things about the syllabus and that we talked about as well. And then we also were in preparation for a meeting of the student council the next morning. So really, it was a real simple meeting.
Okay. And the board student council meeting, I think most of us attended.
I think Dan was,
Dan couldn't make it.
Yeah.
but I
5
think
of
the rest
6.
of us made
Yep.
it.
I thought it was a good exchange.
yeah, that was too.
We explained to the students that we were looking for their ideas. And and Joe and I threw out some ideas, including, some end of the school tests to find out, where they're doing, how well we're doing as far as teaching them. Not attached to grading, but used for benchmarking for our own purposes. They were very receptive. And they thought that, an improvement in the course syllabi would help them immensely, knowing, what they needed to accomplish in their courses. So, I think it was much better than breakfast with the board as far as.
I believe so too, although I'm sure the kids probably, because once they heard that we didn't bring donuts, that maybe they were disappointed. But I think too, also, the more we meet with the students, the more comfortable they will get. I mean, even the breakfast of the board, I mean, it's just kind of the first time. They're like, why are these people here with us? And, they just don't know. They don't know where we're at, what we're asking for and that. And so I think we meet with that group again. We meet with, different groups as we have in the past. I think they'll be more receptive and more willing to share those things
Well,
as well. I
another-
mean, the seniors, of course, they're older. They were the most vocal versus the 7th and 8th graders, they weren't. But, that'll come too for them. And
Yeah,
so
there were
they're.
a lot of young
yeah,
people
But
back
they
then.
are our leaders of our,
Yep.
our schools because they are the, student council. So, I just look forward to meeting with those students again.
Well, another change that I was informed of is that in the past, the student council has been more involved with, planning activities, social activities, and fundraising for those activities. And I think the direction for this year is that they are more of a, I think, is it a blend of the student advisor group that you had previously? So it's more of a student voice as well, on all affairs as well as social planning.
Yeah, good.
And I think Sarah Goodall is trying to mold them into that group that, will have more of a voice.
We also asked the student council to consider actually putting together a platform. We gave an example, like when the Minnesota School Board Association meets, they always have a platform. Different groups, organizations, principals, teachers, we all have platforms that we go to the legislature, and that the school board is really the school legislature. The other thing that was interesting, and we just kind of polled, I just talked to Dan, but 4 of our 6 current school board members were student council members in high school. And so just another example that to encourage our student council representatives that if they want to run for office someday, they might consider doing that. And I think some of them will. I thought it was also interesting, too, that of the entire student council, there's only 2 males, and the rest are female.
But that may be part of, because what they used, if their goal was to do more fundraising things, projects like that, that may be part of that. Now, when the shift occurs, and I'm just guessing, but once that shift occurs to be more of a legislative type platform and that, they may even out the numbers. Maybe not, but.
That's good thought. Okay, SDCC?
Yes, SDCC met last night, finalized the stuff that went over tonight that was approved with Jenny. There was quite a bit of discussion about how to best implement staff development. We have all this data, we have all this information, we bring in speakers, and then the teachers don't really have time to implement it. And so they're looking at ways to efficiently build our calendar so that we can meet the needs of the teachers. And I was, there is a subcommittee that's going to be meeting. I'm going to be a part of that to continue to discuss how we can, suggestions that maybe can be made to the
Do you
calendar.
think, a lot of times those speakers in that come in the middle of the year and stuff? Have we tried more at the beginning of the year or maybe midsummer or something, so the teachers have time to work that into their lesson plans and that, so that they're all revved up to go with this new idea or whatever it is. But when you're going to school and you got a Friday off, and then you've just finished the day Thursday, you hear the speaker and you're just all excited, but you don't have time through the weekend, Monday, to start it. I'm just wondering if maybe the speakers aren't available during the summer months and that.
Well, and actually too, we're looking at like kind of maybe going away from bringing in those full day speakers and having more ongoing work that they can do collaboratively to really accomplish that curriculum,
Good.
the instructional strategies, and on a more frequent basis, and more ongoing.
Right, because, otherwise, if you're busy in the school year,
Right.
you're getting, the whole day, and you just don't have that time to implement.
Right.
But yeah, a smaller
Yep.
might be easier
That's
to.
kind of
yeah.
what this article is that you gave us. that
Yes.
Talked about the PLC's meeting and collaborating with each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Well,
Good.
and
a
there's
good
one thing to
article.
talk about, looking at the daily calendar rather than the school calendar. For example, teachers are under contract for 8 hours a day, but they only have students 5 hours a day.
Sure.
And so there's 3 hours in the day. Of course, they have lunch, but still, we should look at how do we arrange the daily, schedule so that students can have, that teachers can have time during their 8-hour contract day to collaborate with each other. And I think there's ways to do that. So I don't want to just look at, the 184 days that we have in our
Right.
school daily calendar. I want to take a look at how are we using the day? Because
Be more
there's-
efficient.
there's 8 hours, and there's 3 hours that are available, minus a half hour. There's 2.5 hours available that teachers could be meeting and working on curriculum and doing preparation and that type of thing. So there's a way, I think, that we can work with our principals at both buildings to create a very interesting, innovative, creative,
But you're
efficient
still,
schedule.
you're not discussing or thinking about students being dismissed. You're talking
No.
about the students still remaining in the school building.
That is correct.
Thank you.
At the end of the school year, wasn't there some discussion about teachers using some blocks? Jerry Brooks?
Yes, and at the high school level, I know that the principals are looking at a different schedule at the high school for next year.
Because from what you taught me about block scheduling, there are some opportunities to free up some time with a block schedule.
Right, and there's all different, and we've looked at different, there's a gazillion different ways to block up a school. And it doesn't mean that everybody has to have a block, but there are some classes that are, it seems like food classes and vocational classes and art classes and
Well, they need a
science
little more
classes.
time than just that
Right.
55 minutes or 50 minutes, whatever because you barely get set up,
Right.
start something, and then it's like, okay, time to go.
And that's why I think it's so important that the teachers at both buildings work with their principals to think about how best to serve themselves and their children at the same time. And we've got plenty of time. It's only November. We have plenty of time to come up with a different type of schedule. And and we have, I think all 5 of the principals are doing a great job. I really do. I'm really pleased with the leadership that we have in our buildings.
Okay, one more committee meeting, Dan?
No, that was
It was
canceled.
canceled.
Oh, that's right.
But I would like to mention, just to follow up on what you said, Joe, about only 2 guys on the student council. I want to commend all of the gentlemen that participated in the musical. The number of guys that did that this year was dramatically higher than last year. There was only a couple of guy parts that weren't actually roles that were not played by males. So that is a great trend. I think those guys should really be pointed out and thanked for doing that.
They seem to be having fun.
And you could tell from the earlier performances to the final one that they really kind of they all came out of their shell and really, it was tremendously entertaining. And it's a really ambitious thing to have, not only the play and everything going on, but also to do the music. You're not just playing a score off of a CD. I mean, we actually have our students there making the music too. So we had a lot of, of them, boys and girls in the pit, but to get out there and step into a new territory, I thought that was great. And that, nothing should stop, we have plenty of athletes, that's one thing, but if you're a guy and you're not, involved in anything, think about something like that, speech, robotics. There's plenty of different opportunities if you're not athletic that you can still get a great experience and don't have to feel like anybody's looking at you like, making fun of you or anything like that. So great job to those guys and great job to Sarah Goodall and everybody in the music staff on the musical. It was great.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Board.
6:38. That's the longest meeting.
Except for
No, that's